He seemed like any other man in the neighborhood, the quintessential normal guy who could easily be overlooked, a face in the crowd, a man with a van, blending seamlessly into everyday life. No one suspected Jeffrey Willis of harboring the darkest of secrets. But all that changed the night a teenage girl narrowly escaped what could have been a horrific fate. Her desperate scream pierced the stillness of the night, shattering the calm and drawing the attention of nearby neighbors. The sound was frantic, desperate, and raw. She had just broken free from the grasp of a man who had trapped her inside a van driven by none other than Jeffrey Willis himself. The police arrived in minutes, responding to the chaos unfolding in a quiet street that had never known such terror. When they approached the van, a chill ran through every officer's spine. The door swung open, and inside lay the unsettling scene that would soon grip the entire community: handcuffs glinting coldly under the dim streetlights, syringes filled with unknown substances scattered carelessly across the seats, and evidence of a meticulously planned nightmare. It was not a random abduction attempt but something far more sinister. The teenage girl, barely able to catch her breath, recounted the horror she had endured, how Willis had stalked her, lured her with false kindness, and then sought to imprison her in a nightmare of torture and silence. Her escape was narrow, a flicker of hope amid the looming darkness. Detectives quickly realized this was no ordinary criminal. As they searched Willis's van, their unease deepened. Every item, every detail, spoke of obsession and depravity. His phone and laptop revealed a digital trail of horrors, images, videos, and search histories that detailed an obsession with torture, pain, and control. This man, who had seemed so unremarkable, was a predator hiding behind a mask of normalcy. What was even more horrifying was the connection detectives began to uncover. The names Rebecca Blech and Jessica Heringer sent shockwaves through the investigation. Two young women whose lives had been stolen in brutal and mysterious circumstances, cases that had haunted the community for years. Rebecca's body had been found after a brutal murder that left the town shaken, a haunting reminder of evil's reach. Jessica had vanished without a trace one stormy night, leaving only unanswered questions and broken hearts behind. As investigators dug deeper, the patterns were undeniable. The same tools of torment, the same methodical cruelty, and the same eerie digital footprints pointed directly to Jeffrey Willis. He was not just the normal guy people thought they knew, he was the quintessential creepy guy, a man whose facade concealed a killer's mind. The discovery shattered the illusion of safety the community had clung to. How could someone so seemingly ordinary harbor such darkness? How had he operated undetected for so long? The van was not just a vehicle, it was a mobile chamber of horrors, a carefully prepared trap filled with restraints designed to bind victims, syringes meant to sedate or worse, and instruments crafted for inflicting pain. Willis's meticulous nature was chilling. Every detail was planned, every move calculated. The teenage girl's testimony painted a terrifying picture of a man who used charm and the guise of normality as a lure, preying on vulnerability and trust. The investigation revealed the cruel calculus of his mind, how he preyed on unsuspecting victims, each encounter edging closer to the unspeakable. The community's reaction was one of shock and fear. The man who smiled politely in passing, who seemed just like any other neighbor, was exposed as a monster hiding in plain sight. Parents grew wary, neighbors watched each other with suspicion, and the haunting stories of Rebecca and Jessica flooded every conversation. Yet beneath the fear was a desperate need for answers, for justice, and for the truth behind the mask. The teenage girl's escape was more than luck, it was a break in the silence that had allowed Willis to continue his crimes. Her courage ignited a relentless pursuit by law enforcement to uncover the full extent of his depravity. As detectives sifted through Willis's digital world, the grim reality became clearer. Videos and images revealed his obsession, his fascination with torture and control. His search history was filled with disturbing queries, his devices stored evidence that painted a portrait of a man consumed by his darkest urges. But questions lingered. How many victims had he claimed before the teenage girl's escape? How many stories remained untold, buried beneath his cold exterior? And was Jeffrey Willis truly alone in his evil, or did a darker network of crime lurk beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered? The community was left grappling with these fears, caught between the relief of a suspect court and the terror of what might yet come to light. Jeffrey Willis's arrest was only the beginning, a doorway into a world of nightmares that had been hidden in plain sight. He sat behind bars, stripped of his ordinary guise, but the shadows he cast stretched far beyond the cell walls. As the investigation continued, the lines between the hunter and the hunted blurred, revealing a web of secrets and lies that would unravel slowly, gripping the community in suspense. The night that began with a teenage girl's desperate scream became the catalyst for exposing a killer whose true face was far from normal. It was a chilling reminder that evil often wears the most ordinary masks. And now, as the town braces for what comes next, the question remains, what else lies hidden beneath the surface? What secrets has Jeffrey Willis taken to his grave, and what horrors await discovery in the chapters still unwritten? The story is far from over. The nightmare has only just begun. Part 2 will delve deeper into the twisted mind of Jeffrey Willis, uncover the full extent of his crimes, and reveal the shocking truths that authorities fear may shatter the community forever. Stay tuned, because when the mask comes off, the real horror begins. The moment Jeffrey Willis was hauled into custody, the veneer of normality that had cloaked him shattered like glass. The quiet man with the van was no longer just a neighbor or a passing face. He was the epicenter of a nightmare, a chilling figure whose dark obsessions and brutal actions had terrorized a community long before the teenage girl's narrow escape. But the arrest was only the beginning. What lay behind Willis's cold eyes was a labyrinth of depravity, cruelty, and carefully concealed madness. The investigation now had to unravel the twisted mind of a man whose calculated horrors were far more expansive than anyone had dared imagine. Behind the sterile interrogation room walls, Jeffrey Willis sat motionless, his expression unreadable. Detectives tried to peel back the layers, searching for a confession, a clue, any hint of motive or method. But Willis was a man who had mastered the art of concealment, speaking little and revealing less. His calm demeanor unnerved even the most seasoned officers. It was as if he was already detached from the world, locked inside a cold, dark place that no one else could reach. The first breakthrough came not from Willis himself but from the vast trove of digital evidence seized during the arrest. Investigators combed through his devices, laptops, phones, external drives, and uncovered files that sent a shockwave through the department. Hours of meticulously recorded videos depicted scenes of unspeakable torment, painstakingly edited and catalogued. There were blueprints, notes, and diagrams outlining methods of restraint, sedation, and psychological manipulation. It was a chilling archive, a digital shrine to pain and control. More than that, there were personal journals, entries filled with disturbing ramblings that spoke of an obsession not just with torture, but with power over life and death. Jeffrey Willis wrote of breaking wills, of creating fear, and of erasing identities. Each word dripped with cold calculation. These were not the ramblings of a momentary madman but the writings of someone who had long plotted his descent into darkness. But perhaps the most disturbing discovery was the link to the missing and murdered women, the cases of Rebecca Bletch and Jessica Heringer. For years, these cases had haunted the community, their details whispered with fear but never fully understood. Rebecca's brutal murder had left scars on the town's collective psyche, while Jessica's disappearance was a mystery wrapped in shadows and unanswered questions. In Willis's digital files, investigators found direct evidence tying him to these women. GPS data placed his van near the locations where Rebecca's body was found and where Jessica vanished. Photos and videos matched the known timelines, showing a man stalking, hunting, and ultimately destroying lives. It was a damning link, a connection no one had suspected, buried beneath years of silence and deception. The more the investigation delved, the more it became clear that Willis was no lone actor. Hidden in encrypted communications and obscure forums were hints of a network, other predators who shared his obsession, his methods, and his cruelty. Was Jeffrey Willis a kingpin in a wider web of violence? Or was he a lone wolf, driven by madness but isolated in his acts? The answers remained elusive, but the shadow of a greater evil loomed. Meanwhile, the community struggled to come to terms with the truth. The realization that a man they had passed on the street, smiled at, or barely noticed was capable of such horrors ignited fear and outrage. Vigils were held for Rebecca and Jessica, their families clinging to fragile hope that justice might finally come. The teenage girl's bravery was hailed, but it was a bittersweet victory. She had survived, but countless others had not. Psychologists brought in to assess Willis described a man exhibiting classic signs of a predator: calculating, remorseless, and deeply disturbed. His ability to mask his intentions with normalcy was part of his dangerous appeal. To unsuspecting victims, he was harmless, even friendly. But beneath that mask was a cold intellect devoted to domination and destruction. With each passing day, investigators uncovered more about Willis's past. Childhood friends recalled a loner, someone fascinated by violence from a young age. School records hinted at a boy who was withdrawn, obsessed with macabre subjects, and prone to anger. Yet no one had ever imagined the depths to which he would sink. His adult life was a carefully crafted lie. He held down jobs that required minimal interaction, lived alone, and kept his activities private. His van was his true home and his tool of terror, a mobile lair where he executed his dark fantasies. It was equipped with restraints, sedatives, and other paraphernalia designed to incapacitate and control victims with terrifying efficiency. Law enforcement launched searches at multiple sites linked to Willis, uncovering caches of evidence and personal effects of victims. Some were never identified, deepening the horror and underscoring the scale of his crimes. Every new piece of evidence painted a broader picture of a man who had thrived on secrecy, who had carefully avoided detection while carrying out his monstrous acts. Amid this unfolding nightmare, a question haunted the lead detective more than any other: how had Willis remained free for so long? How had his actions escaped notice despite the pattern of disappearances, the chilling similarities, and the close calls? The answer was a complex web of missteps, assumptions, and the dangerous illusion of normality that cloaked his true nature. The community demanded answers and accountability, not just from Willis but from the system that had failed to catch him sooner. Pressure mounted on law enforcement agencies to piece together the timeline, to uncover any oversights, and to ensure justice was served in full. Yet the investigation was far from complete. Behind the walls of the interrogation room, Jeffrey Willis sat silently, his mind a fortress. When pressed, he revealed fragments of his story, a fractured glimpse into the twisted motivations and dark fantasies that had driven him. But he refused to cooperate fully, offering cryptic remarks and chilling insights that only deepened the mystery. "Control," he muttered once. "Fear is the key." The detective leaned in, sensing a moment of truth, but Willis fell silent again, eyes cold and unreadable. Meanwhile, the search for other victims continued. Families who had long mourned without answers clung to the hope that Willis's capture might finally bring closure. But there were warnings, too, the possibility that the true extent of Willis's crimes might never be fully known, that darkness still lurked beneath layers of secrecy. The digital world opened new avenues for investigation. Experts in cybercrime traced Willis's online activity, uncovering dark corners of the internet where twisted communities shared their horrors. Was Willis connected to one of these networks? Was there a broader conspiracy? These questions fueled late-night sessions and painstaking digital forensics that aimed to unravel every thread. The story remains steeped in tension and uncertainty. Jeffrey Willis is behind bars, his monstrous deeds exposed for all to see. Yet the shadows of his actions linger, casting a pall over a community struggling to heal. The victims, some known, many still unnamed, demand justice, remembrance, and answers. And as investigators prepare to press forward, new revelations await, secrets that could shatter what remains of the fragile peace. The hunt for truth is far from over, and the dark maze that is Jeffrey Willis's mind remains a dangerous enigma. What more will be uncovered in the coming days? Are there still victims waiting to be found? Will the web of darkness extend beyond what anyone has dared imagine? The arrest of Jeffrey Willis had shaken the community to its core, but as this harrowing saga unfolds, the chilling reality becomes unmistakably clear: the nightmare was far from over. Behind the cold steel bars and under the harsh glare of the courtroom lights, Willis's true nature was revealed in full, no longer the normal guy but the quintessential embodiment of evil concealed in plain sight. The final chapter of this story would not only bring justice to his victims but also expose the lasting scars left on a town forever changed by his darkness. From the very first day of his trial, the atmosphere was electric with tension. Families of the victims, law enforcement, and the public demanded answers, closure, and retribution. The prosecution laid bare the gruesome details of Willis's crimes, his methodical stalking, the cruel precision with which he trapped his victims, and the calculated torment that followed. For many, hearing the evidence was almost unbearable. Each witness testimony, each piece of forensic proof, served as a piercing reminder of the horror inflicted by a man who had hidden behind a mask of normality for years. But Jeffrey Willis remained inscrutable throughout much of the proceedings. His gaze was often blank, detached, as if the courtroom drama was something distant, irrelevant to the cold calculations that had driven him for so long. When confronted with the raw pain of his victims' families, he showed no remorse, only a chilling silence that sent a shudder through those present. Psychologists called to testify described Willis as a textbook case of a sadistic predator, one who thrived on control and the suffering of others. His ability to manipulate, his careful planning, and his uncanny skill at blending into society made him a dangerous figure, capable of inflicting unimaginable pain while maintaining the facade of an ordinary man. To the community, this was a terrifying truth: evil had worn the most ordinary face imaginable. The evidence was overwhelming. Forensic teams painstakingly pieced together the timeline of Willis's crimes, revealing a pattern of cruelty and deception. From the cold comfort of his van to the eerie digital trail, every detail painted a picture of a man driven by dark compulsions. The discovery of additional victims' belongings in hidden locations fueled a race against time to identify the full scope of his actions. Among the most wrenching moments in court was the testimony of the teenage girl whose escape had sparked the investigation. Her courage in recounting the night that nearly claimed her life was both heart-wrenching and heroic. She described the terrifying calm of Willis's voice, the cold grip of the restraints, and the desperation that fueled her fight for survival. Her testimony brought the courtroom to a hush, the weight of her ordeal settling over everyone present. As the trial proceeded, revelations continued to emerge. Experts analyzed Willis's digital footprint, uncovering encrypted messages and dark web connections that hinted at a broader network of predators, possibly others who shared his twisted interests. Though no concrete links were established, the mere possibility of an underground web of evil sent shockwaves through law enforcement agencies nationwide. The prosecution's closing argument was a masterclass in unflinching resolve. They painted Willis as a predator who had robbed lives, shattered families, and terrorized a community under the guise of normality. Their call for justice was echoed in the courtroom and beyond, resonating with a public desperate for closure and safety. After days of deliberation, the jury returned with a verdict: guilty on all counts. Willis was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, ensuring he would never harm another soul. The courtroom erupted, a mixture of relief and sorrow filling the space. Families embraced, some tears of grief mingling with those of hard-won justice. Yet, even as the sentence was delivered, a heavy silence lingered. The scars left by Jeffrey Willis's reign of terror would not fade quickly. For many, the memories of Rebecca, Jessica, and the other victims would haunt them forever. The community, once shattered by fear, now began the long process of healing, but the shadow of Willis's crimes would remain a dark stain on its history. Behind bars, Willis remained an enigma. While some hoped for remorse, none came. Instead, his silence spoke volumes. Psychologists warned that men like Willis often maintain a chilling detachment, their dark impulses untouched by remorse or regret. To them, the truth was clear: the monster was locked away, but the evil that drove him could never be fully erased. In the months following the trial, the investigation continued to ripple outward. Authorities launched cold case reviews, re-examining unsolved disappearances and deaths with new eyes. Some families found renewed hope that their loved ones might one day be accounted for. Others grappled with the reality that Willis's actions might only be a piece of a larger puzzle. Community leaders spearheaded initiatives to raise awareness about personal safety, to empower potential victims, and to foster vigilance. Schools, churches, and local organizations rallied together, united by a shared determination to prevent such horrors from happening again. The teenage girl's bravery became a symbol of resilience, her story inspiring campaigns that emphasized the power of speaking out. Yet, Questions lingered in the background, questions that may never find answers. Had Willis truly acted alone? Were there accomplices who enabled or encouraged his crimes? The hints of a broader network remained tantalizingly out of reach, locked behind encrypted messages and dark web shadows. For law enforcement, the case was both a victory and a sobering reminder. It showcased the power of perseverance, community vigilance, and the relentless pursuit of justice. But it also revealed the cracks in the system that allowed a man like Willis to operate undetected for so long. Training, protocols, and awareness were re-examined with renewed urgency. In the quiet moments, the lead detective reflected on the journey, from the teenage girl's desperate scream that night to the final courtroom verdict. The path had been tortuous, filled with dead ends and heartbreak, but justice had prevailed. Still, the weight of the victims' lives pressed heavily. Each name, each story was a reminder of the human cost behind the headlines. And so, as the dust settled, the community stood at a crossroads. The nightmare of Jeffrey Willis was over, but the journey toward healing and safety was just beginning. Families mourned, survivors rebuilt, and a town learned the painful truth. Sometimes, evil hides behind the most ordinary faces, and only vigilance, courage, and unity can unmask it. The final chapter in Jeffrey Willis's dark story closes here, but the lessons echo far beyond, reminders that justice, though delayed, can be achieved, and that hope can rise even from the darkest places.